coefficient of tummy ache. If you're sitting at a negotiation, you have a tummy ache, and the guy across from you does not, you are getting taken advantage of. If you're sitting at a table, the guy across from you has a tummy ache and you don't, you're taking advantage of him. If you both have a tummy ache, something has not been communicated. So you have to communicate until everybody understands that it's the greatest good. If I'm in negotiation with you, I need something from you. Money, distribution channels, connections, or something. If you're negotiating with me, I have something you want. Well, let's have everybody win. I think it's possible. Any of these cases I've been involved with, that people would just do what they said, they understood what they said in the first place, and then do what they said, every side could win. That's my experience. There was another stunning thing. There was a company, production company, I won't mention the name. It had released one movie, it didn't make any money. They had an agreement from Bruce Willis to star in another movie. And they had to pay Bruce a $250,000 non-returnable holding fee. Meaning he would get $250K if he would stay available for a certain period of 2 months. The production company had pre-sold the rights to the film to various exhibition companies, theater owners, based on Bruce Willis's starring in it. They couldn't collect quite enough money to make the film. And they were out $250K. They needed another, I think it was $500K. So they were out $250 to Bruce. They had raised enough money almost to make the movie, but they needed $500,000. If they didn't go into production soon, they would lose Bruce Willis. And all of their ability to collect from the exhibitors was based on Bruce's attachment. So they went to the private equity markets, and there's a list of these guys in LA who got money, and they throw it around like that. The producers found a guy who hired me as his expert witness, who had a bunch of cash, and he dabbled. He's an entrepreneur, and according to the U.S. Entrepreneurial Society or Entrepreneurial Society of America, an average entrepreneur makes one investment a month. He assumes 11 will not get him anything back, and that one will get back everything and more. That's the assumption. So this guy gave the money to the company in exchange for an executive producer credit and a certain percentage of the gross budget of the movie. And usually 1 to 3% goes to the person called the executive producer, and the executive producer usually is the person who either raises the money, is the connection to the money, or provides the money. Not creative work at all. So this guy put in the necessary funds, the movie was made, and it netted $20 million. He was not a movie fan, and he failed to notice that the movie came out and didn't have his name as executive producer. And he noticed that he'd never received a check. So he called the guys and he said, "What's up with that?" And they said words that I'm not supposed to say in mixed company. And they said, "So sue us," which we call Jewish sushi. So sue me. And he said, "Okay, I will." So they hired a huge law firm, and they got us settled. By the way, I think the stat is 90 to 95% of such cases are settled. Isn't that right? Valerie? Yeah. But obviously, the bums never expected to follow what they said in the first place. Otherwise, it would have been much simpler for them to cut him a smallish check and put his name in the credits. That's the cheapest thing you can do, is give somebody credit. So another principle is always deliver what you promise. You must, against any or all odds, be a man or woman of your word, for yourself, if no one else. That's the professional thing to do. Therefore, a corollary to this is only promise what you can deliver. You gotta deliver what you promise, so only promise what you can deliver. There can be a tendency to stretch beyond your capabilities. Creative people in the film industry, if and when they smell money, sometimes make promises that are simply not achievable. This gives us all a bad name. I'm not suggesting that you only play it safe, but I am suggesting that you find out what you or your assembled team can deliver before you put any of your family jewels on the line. All right, now, there's a very sad case that I'm involved with at the moment. Sad because I don't see how anybody's going to win. A beautiful girl, I must say, who has danced on Janet Jackson's show and has toured the world with David Bowie and all this kind of real high-quality show dancer, was the victim of a hit and run. Scarred her face. That has been since repaired with plastic surgery. Messed up her legs so she cannot be a professional dancer for another estimated 2 years. She is suing the insurance company, which is Geico, for an amount of money which is so huge, it's embarrassing to me. It's way more than trying to make up the lost salary. And it's way more than trying to show a lesson, give a lesson to somebody. It's outrageous. I was hired by Geico, and you would think normally I would be hired by the artist, and normally I would be, but I was hired by Geico. And again, because I know how the industry works, I said, well, what jobs did she miss? What jobs did she lose on? We found one job that she had gone out for. One. And I said, well, was she given a guarantee? Was she given what's called a callback, which is a second audition? No. That means she was being considered, but there was no guarantee that she would even get a second tryout. Anyway, we pulled the string on down the line, and I'm sorry, she had made about $100,000 a year, which isn't bad, but it's not the millions that she wanted. She was going to be able to dance within a year. Why was she suing Geico for this outrageous amount of money? I imagine because she thought they had it. So we are at the point now in our civilization where it seems to me, and I'm not trying to preach, but I'm trying to preach a little bit. It seems to me people are asking for such outrageous amounts of money, they're assuming people will come back with a settlement offer. And they'll take it. But if you want $1 million, why start out by asking for $100 million? Why not start out by asking for $2 million? You know, a reasonable negotiation. Anyway, that one is a sad one because nobody's really going to win. The girl was wrecked. Geico was totally willing to pay the amount of insurance, which is about $1 million. But they didn't want to pay the lost revenues because there was no evidence that she would have had revenues anywhere near that amount. All right, now I think I'm going to end up now. Oh, I got two more. This is a videotape, VHS. You see the word? The Force. And it's about a car additive. Michael, I think I told you about this once. It's about a car additive which reduces smog emissions. And it's called The Force. Invented and manufactured by an engineering friend of mine. Whom do you suppose sued him for trademark infringement? The Force.
Lucas.
George Lucas. Industrial Light and Magic, May the Force Be With You became a famous line of dialogue and was behind a series of products. Lucas sent his, I actually like George, he's kind of a decent man, but he's got some pit bull attorneys. By the way, I like pit bulls too, they're sweet on you. But let's call them pit bull attorneys. He sent them to sue this friend of mine to take it off the market. And his claim was that people would assume that it was sponsored by or endorsed by or invented by Lucas. My friend defended himself. And he said, but Your Honor, those are two words in the English language. You can't protect them. And the judge made a very interesting finding. He said, Mr. Lucas. Those are 2 words in the English language. You can't take them off the marketplace. But you can take them off any association with science fiction or space age looking characters, certainly a tall guy in a long black cape. So he wrapped both the knuckles, and he said to my friend, just make sure there's never anything sci-fi on the cover, because people will make that mistaken assumption. And so from that point to this day, this is still sold, I think, at Pet Boys or other supply stores. He's got on the cover of the product kind of an Okie type, chewing on a piece of straw, like a redneck type. Anyway, I'm going to end on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre because this is Hollywood at its worst, but it kind of can demonstrate to you what does muster force together. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, famous franchise movie. There have been 6 or 7 parts. The idea and concept and all of that is owned by some Texas investors. They happen to be judges, retired Texas judges. Now, where I come from, you don't mess with a Texas judge. They wear guns on their belts in Texas. If you do what you say, they defend you. If you break your word, they shoot you. Very simple justice. And I kind of like that. You know where you stand. Do what you say, and you don't get shot. They made part 4 of the series, and it starred Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger when they were unknown actors. While that picture was being put together, Matthew hit in A Time to Kill, and Renee Zellweger hit Jerry Maguire. They were both represented at the time by CAA, Creative Artists, one of the big 3 agencies along with William Morris and ICM. A bright young man at Columbia in the division called Screen Gems, which kind of is their classical releasing division, was presiding over the success of Jerry Maguire, which I think was a Columbia release at A Time to Kill. And this bright young man said, I'm going to be a big guy. I'm going to buy this Texas Chainsaw number 4 and release it. He goes, and he doesn't know the producers are Texas judges. He said, I want to buy this film. And they said, how much? He said, what did it cost you? They said, $1.2 million. That's called a negative cost, being the film negative, not a minus number. And this guy said, we'll give you $1.2 million, cover your negative cost, and we'll give you X% of any revenues beyond that. And they said, fine. So they delivered the film. It was scheduled as a Halloween release, wide release, it was called. So in the agreement with Columbia that was signed by the producers, who were these undiscovered Texas judges, they promised a wide release, which in my industry means 1,500 screens or more, and a commensurate amount of P&A print and advertising. Prints and advertising on a 1,500 screen release would be $5 to $10 million at the time. And they said, we are aiming for, but we don't promise a Halloween release, because that's when horror films come out. Halloween comes and goes, and the film doesn't appear. The producers call the man at Columbia and said, what's happening? The film didn't appear. Oh, we decided not to release it. But wait a second, you signed this agreement and you gave us $1.2 million, which we cashed. You don't decide not to do it. You do it because you said you would. So sue us. He said, the flagrant flying in the face of the promise is stunning to me. So the Columbia exec made the big mistake. He said, you don't like it, sue us. And they said, okay, we will. Huh. And they hired a giant Texas law firm based in Austin, whose average billing in a case is $1 billion. When Texaco will sue Chevron for invasion, they'll sue for 100 billion and a billion is there. They took it on just as a goof, this law. And they wanted an expert witness because they were very smart. They knew nothing about the film business. And I always like people who know they know nothing. Because I know nothing about your business, I ain't learned. But I don't assume anything. So they took the top 50 people on Google, and Colin is, I don't know how we did it, but if you go to Google and you type in film industry consultant, I'm the first and second one. So they interviewed the top 50 of us who appeared, and Lyndon Johnson's granddaughter was one of the people interviewing us. It was really cool. She's a sweetheart, by the way. And they chose me. And they hired me for 400 hours. The first 200 were to be spent defining words. This is how smart they were. They knew nothing about the way my business uses words. For example, the word profit. If I said profit, you'd say you make more than you spend, right? That's about it. That's profit. In a film industry contract, the definition of the word profit is 40 pages long, legal size paper, single space type. What's that going to show you? Why there's never going to be a profit. So the first 200 hours I spent defining words: profit, net, gross, participation, wide release. And they were, as I say, very smart. They knew they didn't know what these things meant. And this is the one where in the deposition of the people who own, I'll tell you, they were also suing the agency, CAA, for conspiracy to prevent fair trade. And that, as you guys know and have told me, is the most difficult one to prove. How can you prove somebody had a conspiracy? Because that's a not there. So we got in our discovery a handwritten memo from one of the two owners of CAA that he wrote to his secretary saying, you tell that so-and-so at Columbia that if he releases that picture, you're never going to get CAA talent again. Sounds like an unfair restraint of trade to me. So at the deposition, it's the one where the attorneys for the bad guys came up to me in the restroom. At the deposition, they said, Mr. So-and-so, the owner that we were deposing, would you ever threaten somebody with access to your talent if they don't do what you want? He said, no, I wouldn't do that. And they said, is this memo in your handwriting? And he looked at it and said, yes, it is. And they said, will you please read it? And he read it. You, at Columbia, if you release this film, you're never going to get CAA talent again. So the guy read it into the record, and he didn't blink. And then the lawyer for the Texas oil law firm looked him in the eye and said, how do you account for this? And this is what the guy did, and I'm going to go around and show you. How do you account for this? I don't. Can you believe that? I don't. I don't, meaning I'm above the law. That is shocking to me and pre-primordial. I mean, that is... So how can you do business in an industry where they'll write a contract so complex that nobody can understand it, with words all misdefined, ill-defined and not defined, and don't even intend to follow? How can you do business? Well, movies get made, television shows get made, and people watch them. Tremendous amount of revenue changes hands. And I guess my message to you all is your training in your profession enable people like me to get moving visual image products out there and have some chance to get a nickel back. And I'd like to have that chance because I have a family and 2 kids and a wife and 2 dogs and a house, and I'd like to get some money back if money comes in. Now we could pull this string even further and say, well, why would people be this way? Well, we could say people are basically evil. I don't happen to agree with it. I think most people I know are basically good. Why do I say that? They would rather see their friends and family win. A man or woman who doesn't want their friends and family to win aren't good. I might want me to win as well as you, but it's fine with me if you win. I would like to win. So we could decide people are basically bad, but I just don't think that's warranted. I don't have any evidence that people are basically bad. I have evidence, a lot of evidence that people are basically good, but they get confused. Why else would somebody not intend to do what he's agreed to? Well, he doesn't have a mirror in his bathroom. Because where I live, the first person I usually see in the morning is myself. If I'm looking at myself, I like not to have my stomach turned at what I'm seeing. So if you don't look at yourself, maybe you don't have to confront it as much. Any man who wishes to live with himself, or woman who wishes to live with herself, ought to do what they say. It's like a golden rule type thing. So no mirrors, no sense of integrity or morality, complete misunderstandings on the 10 Commandments or any Judeo-Christian code that most of us have been raised with, or Hindu, Buddhist, Muslim. I mean, most sacred codes have certain basic tenets. Am I right, KJ?
That's right.
Don't hurt your fellow man or woman. And there's a big debate on whether in the Bible, thou shalt not murder or thou shalt not kill. And the New Wave of scholars says thou shalt not murder. Murder would be an unjustified killing. How could a killing be justified? Well, somebody's attacking your family or you. There is some sense that we have the right to protect ourselves. So I guess my opinion at this point in the film business is I would have contracts written by my attorneys or team thereof. I would need to understand them. I would question any vagueness, any confusing issues, any complexity. I would make sure I understood them, and I would hold to my convictions. If the person doesn't want to sign it, fine. We see, where do you want to bend? And I think the word compromise has a bit of a negative connotation, means you give up something. But I don't think it has to. Everybody can get what they want. There is so much money on this planet, it's ridiculous. So there's a man named Dick Cook. I don't think I told you guys this story last year. Dick Cook. He ran Disney for 35 years. He is that oxymoronic, beloved studio executive. He did what he promised. He had friends all over the industry. He created the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise with Johnny Depp. He made the studio billions and billions of dollars. Man of honor, man of integrity. He did what he promised, so he's beloved. He looks like Santa Claus also. When the last Disney died about 2 years ago, Roy Disney, the guy that was brought in by the board to take over was a guy named Bob Iger. Bob Iger had been running ABC. Not a bad man. He wears Gucci loafers with no socks. Pardon my. He wears a sweater fashionably tied around his neck. Yes, I'm casting aspersions against him, but he may not be a bad man. I don't know. First thing he does is the mistake that all executives make when they get a new job. He fires everybody. At Disney, is it's actually the most famous American product in the world, more famous than Coca-Cola and McDonald's, is Mickey Mouse. That's on a survey of mainland China that was recently done by the Gallup Organization. What products have they heard of manufactured outside of mainland China? One German product on it, Mercedes-Benz, and one American product, Mickey Mouse. Isn't that amazing? So, the most famous product in America. And he fires Dick Cook. Johnny Depp paid for about 50 G's and took a full page ad in Variety saying, any company that's so stupid as to hire Dick Cook, I'm not working for it. So outrage was created. Dick gets offices across the street from Disney and has now created the Dick Cook Company. And he hires as his not chief counsel but chief strategist a college classmate of mine, Peter Deckham, who was a very smart attorney, one of the most famous entertainment attorneys. He wrote the tax laws for the state of New Mexico for film investment. Very smart guy. And his stated purpose is, in the first 2 years, to raise $1 billion. And I said to Peter, with whom I have a lunch every 2 months or so for 47 years since we got out of college, I said to Peter, how can you raise that much money in the tight economy? He says, Eric, money is stuff. It doesn't disappear. We've already raised $850 million. And that's in less than a year. So money is there. Plenty of money to go around. But we do have to get over the sense that if I have $1, you don't. Why don't we both have $1? So maybe I'm preaching to the choir, or maybe you think I'm hopelessly naive. Either is okay. But what I actually think is people like to see movies, television programs. They like to be entertained. They like to lighten the load. They like to have a glance at new realities. They like to be, as Harry Warner, the founder of Warner Brothers, said, educated, entertained, and enlightened. What can do that easier than a movie? Not much. Why make it more difficult to get them made and more difficult for people who make them to win? There's plenty to go around. So my message to anybody here who is involved in entertainment law, which I gather most of you are, let's assume that people want to make sure their rights and interests are protected, and a best way to do that is to protect both sides. Let it be possible for both sides to win. And if you see something that doesn't make sense in a contract, in a negotiation, yank on it. Say, well, now, normal sense would say this and that. How come you're saying the other? And you'll often find out that somebody's been put up to it or somebody doesn't understand what he has asked for. And so my final message is the golden rule should be the guideline. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Don't do unto others as you would not have them do unto you. And if you see a piece of paper and you would sign it, it's probably okay to sign. If you see a piece of paper and you wouldn't sign it, tell your client, I would consider signing this or not signing this for the following reasons. All right, I hope this talk has been of some interest. I love you guys because you do work to benefit both sides. Man, woman, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, American, foreign. And this, since we do have this global community now tied together by the digital revolution, let's communicate more rather than less. Let's be clearer rather than more obfuscating. Okay?